Yeah, you look good today.
Oh, thank you. I'm feeling good today.
Yeah,
What's the 28th?
today's April 20th.
Yeah, well, that means $380 just came out of my checking account for my lease, and $53 came out of my checking account for my farmer's homeowner's insurance. Yeah, not good.
Well, actually, you're bringing up something um,
Yeah.
that I wanted to talk about today that our audience has kind of brought up. You mentioned you have your own lease payment. I made my car payment a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
financing my Volvo S90. You've leased your, what do you have, a 2020 Clubman?
2020 Mini Clubman S, all four. Oh, baby. It's the most exciting 818 miles I've driven in 4 months.
If you're interested in seeing photos of Ray's Mini, I'll link to his Instagram in the description. He's got some quality stuff there. But today we were going to talk about finance terms. Let's
Yes.
actually not dive too deep into lease. Let's talk more about loans, if that's okay, because we saw, Ray, when coronavirus came around and the pandemic hit, we saw all sorts of new financing options that were 0%, um, for 72 months or 84 months. And one of the first things you told me is, sounds good, but you shouldn't do it. And I think for our audience, it's really important to understand, there's a lot of questions when you go into the dealership, just trying to even get to the point where you talk about financing a car, just getting the deal. But once you're there, what type of loan structure should you look for if you are going to finance? And maybe can you give us your wisdom on how you approach that?
Well, the first thing you need to realize is that new car that you're buying, the moment you sign your loan documents and your titling documents and you drive that car off the lot, it has just depreciated in value 20%.
Wow.
So if you bought a $30,000 car, you just lost, I can't do 20%, but you just lost 6 grand in value in your car.
You know how
Uh,
much that resonates with me currently being $6,000 in the hole on what was like what was it, like a $37,000 car?
yeah. And I understand how that resonates, but here's the reason I bring that up. You are losing 20% of your initial value the day you buy the car.
Okay.
I mean, that day, if you contacted the dealer 10 days later after the car's already been titled and the paperwork's been filed and the loan's been opened, and you said, gee, I made a mistake, I'd like to sell it back, well, you would be shocked at the loss you were about to take.
Yeah.
So if for instance you were someone that took advantage of that 0% financing for 84 months, and I get that, that's free money, well, you're not going to be in an equity position anytime soon, considering that, well, I don't know, you lost 20% of the value of your car the minute you bought it, and it's going down another 10% every year thereafter or more.
Like,
So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so are you saying that if you take out a 7-year loan, that sounds like it's free money because it is free money being lent to you, unless you plan to drive that thing into 2030, you're probably gonna come up short on that end of the target.
What I'm saying is you want to try and take as short a loan as possible to minimize the amount of negative equity you would be bringing to your next vehicle purchase when you're trying to trade out of your existing one. Even though you're not paying any interest on the loan, you are walking around with negative equity.
Yeah.
And if you're not like my brother, who during our conversation Sunday night, it was determined that he only has to live another 3 years before it's time for him to get his next new car, because, well, that'll be 20 years since he got his last one. Okay. So unless you're my brother who keeps a car forever, you want to go with as short a loan term as possible, as opposed to as long a loan term. Now, if you are like my brother and you keep a car for a long time, by all means, take advantage of free money, and take that loan out as long as they'll allow you to. If they'll allow you to do 7 years, take it for 7 years. But if you're part of the group of the mass majority of customers who really look to get into a new car every 2 to 3 years, maybe it's up to every 4 years now.
Yeah.
If you're in a 7-year loan, well, in 4 years, you're not going to walk into that transaction, the next transaction, with any positive equity going towards the purchase. You're going to be rolling additional negative equity into your next loan.
And now, can you share a story or two from when you were in the dealership? And I mean, would you have folks that would come in and roll over negative equity twice, 3 times? Like how devastating can that be when you're trying to purchase a new car?
Well, it's only really devastating until the last time you try and do it, and no bank will let you.
Really?
Yes. And we had a comment I noticed earlier today,
Yeah.
from one of our videos, where a customer has a car now that he owes $58,000 on, that he'd like to perhaps maybe get rid of. And he figures, well, if he went to the dealer, they're going to give him $41,000. And so that's just $17,000 of negative equity. Now, if you ask most customers when you first sit down with them to discuss the parameters of a car deal,
Yeah.
and they tell you have a trade, the first question a salesperson should ask is, well, how were you planning on handling your negative equity? And most people have no idea other than to say, well, can I roll it into the next loan? Well, this guy's got $17,000 of negative equity. If he's looking at a $60,000 car this time, and a bank will do 130%, he might still be able, 130% of MSRP that they'll finance.
Yeah.
He might, since he only owes $17,000 more than the car is worth, but we haven't included any taxes, tags, and any other fees yet,
Yeah.
he might be able to find himself in a position where he can roll all that negative equity in. More than likely,
Yeah.
won't be able to, because 130% of a $60,000 MSRP car is just, well, that's $18,000 more.
Yeah.
But think of the sales tax on a $60,000 car.
No, for sure.
Yeah, so that you don't want to be in that position. And I had customers, plenty of customers, who, they'd come back and we'd have $2,000 we'd have to roll into the next loan. And then they'd come back and we'd have $5,000. And then they'd come back and you'd have $10,000. And then, you'd be like the gentleman that gave us the comment today, that's the proud possessor of $17,000 of negative equity. And at a certain point, the bank just says no. But also, you got to figure out, even at no interest.
Yeah.
Okay. $17,000 divided by, say, 60 months. That's almost $300 a month you're paying just towards your negative equity on your new car payment.
Yeah. And that's the reality of buying a new car, right?
That's the reality of buying any car. Yeah. Whether it be new or used, if you're financing it. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of comments from a number of our customers that suggest, or a number of our subscribers who suggest, well, you should just pay cash for a car. Well, you should if you could. Yeah. And most people can't. So that's why there's financing options. When I first started in the business,
yeah,
in 1977, the average length of a car loan was 24 months.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because cars were 3 grand.
Yeah, but 3 grand in '77. I mean, I don't know. That's still
But still, 3 grand in '77. I mean, if somebody put down $500, and your taxes and says you're financing 3 grand for 2 years, it's not all that much of a payment.
yeah.
And then cars started going up in price. So then average finance terms extended from 24 months to 30 months to 36 months to 48 months to 60 months, 72 months, 84 months. Um, and yes, shame on us Americans in that we are a disposable society that wants the latest and the greatest
Yeah.
uh, as soon as it comes out. I mean, why do you think leases are 2 years on cell phones? Well, you know that cell phones will last longer than 2 years.
No, no, I understand. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that we are a society that has figured out that as long as we're willing to accept a payment for something, we can always have the latest and the greatest.
So let's actually talk about that, Ray, because what you've described is at odds with what a lot of people, myself included, when I went through the car buying process, your rationale, which is I make a certain amount of money each month from my job or my different revenue streams, my income, and I allocate X percent to be acceptable to go towards my living, my housing, my car, etc. So, for example, when I was in my position, I knew I didn't want to spend more than, and you helped me out here, but it was like $500 a month on a car payment.
Hmm.
And I ended up spending like, $800 a month on a car payment. And that goes back to disposable society, wanting the latest and greatest.
Yeah.
Now, if I put more money down, obviously I can affect my monthly payment. But the other thing I can do to affect my monthly payment is I can get a longer loan. But that's directly at odds with what you're advising and counseling, right?
Well, there's a number of things that you could have done to get a lower payment.
Why didn't you tell me this when I was buying the car?
The car you wanted. The things that you could have done, you could have put down more cash, which would lower your payment. You could go to a longer term, which would lower your payment. Or you could have gone to a less expensive car, which would have lowered your payment. It wouldn't have met your your perceived psychological and driving needs and the statement that you might have wanted to make at the time.
Yeah.
Because I hate to say this, but there's a certain amount of vanity that comes into what cars we decide to drive.
Yeah.
Here's one of the better ways to look at it. Cars are a necessary evil in our society in most cases. Okay.
Okay.
They're a need, but $100,000 car is a want. That's not a need. If you just want a car to get around because you have a need to get from point A to point B, well, you don't have to do it in a $100,000 car. You can do it in a $10,000 car.
Yeah.
But our society and the whole global society is not based on need. It's based on want. Okay. And what car dealers sell is want. If they were just selling need, there wouldn't be any fun. When I had my golf shop,
Yeah.
and people would come in and they'd say to me, "Well, do I really need these Callaway Big Bertha woods?" And I go, "I don't know if you need them, but I sure as hell know that you want them."
Yeah.
I'm not in the need business here. I'm in the want business, and that's what it is. And then, for instance, like when you were thinking about getting the car that you bought,
Yeah.
and you had a budget in mind,
Yeah.
that you would, that was acceptable to you to spend on a monthly basis. And as I always told my salespeople, everybody has a budget
Yep.
as to what's comfortable for everybody. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, they have budgets as well. It's just their budgets are a hell of a lot higher than most of ours. But everybody has a budget in mind that they feel is comfortable. My suggestion is, okay, stay within your comfort level, but try and do that within a shorter time frame on your loan rather than a longer time frame on your loan.
So give it to us straight. I mean, if you were in my shoes and doing it all over again, or anyone that's watching this video and they're thinking of financing a car, is it 48 months? Is it 36 months? What is your advice when it comes to that? What should we strive for?
Well, you should strive for trying to finance it for as long as you think you're going to want to own it.
Okay.
So if you know your buying habits, at a certain age, most people have a pretty good idea as to how often they like to replace things.
Sure.
And if you know that you're okay with keeping a car for 48 months,
Yep.
then try and find a car that fits into a monthly payment that you can handle for 48 months. But don't try and find a car. Don't try and find a loan length that allows you to have that 48-month comfortable payment, but you have to go out to 84 months to get it.
Yeah, I think you may have told me this early on when we, started working for our customers, for our clients, and helping them buy cars. Is that a lot of people shop for a payment? They don't shop for a car. And your
Yeah.
advice is don't shop for a payment because you can kind of rob Peter to pay Paul. I think that's the saying, right? You can convince yourself today that you check the box that you spent less than $500 a month, but you're going to have all that negative equity that you're talking about 4 years from now when you go to try and trade that car in. And I guess the question I have for you, Ray, is if you're in that position. So I take it some people that are watching this video right now, and also the person you're talking to who is $6,000 underwater in his car, if they are in that position, and I know we talked about this a bit in a different video, what do you do to get out of it? Do you roll it into the next one? Do you bite the bullet? I mean, what's your recommendation there?
There's two ways you can do it. You can stroke that check as additional down payment on your next car if you're financing it so that you don't roll it in.
Yeah.
Or if you are substantially upside down in your present vehicle, my suggestion, at least for the next 3 years for you, would be to lease your next car.
Okay.
Here's why I say that. If you lease the car and you roll the negative into that lease and into that lease payment, at the end of that 36 months, you don't have any negative equity. You've gotten rid of it all in 3 years. You've driven a nice car for 3 years. And then since you have no negative equity, you can just go look at your next car and you can decide how much money you want to put down so that you won't find yourself in that position again. But if the best way in my mind to get rid of that negative equity that most people keep dragging with themselves all the time is roll it into a lease and you're done in 36 months.
No, that's a really interesting idea. I never thought about that, but that makes total sense.
Yeah, either that or make sure you have gap insurance, and when they give you a weather warning of severe thunderstorms, find a big tree to park your car under.
You cannot.
It's a natural disaster.
Yeah, yeah.
It's an act of nature. I'm not telling you to drive the damn car into a lake. I'm just telling you to park it under a tree that's likely to fall over.
This YouTube channel was fun while it lasted. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens now. But okay, Ray. I mean, that makes plenty of sense, and I think that's really valuable insight. So, if you're in a position and you're going to finance a car, don't be tempted by these long loan terms. Look for something that's a bit shorter. Look for something that's more reasonable. And and correct me if I'm wrong here, look past your own vanity and your own, disposable habits and try and recognize that this is a depreciating investment and that the best thing you can do. This is almost like therapeutic for me. So thank you. Recognize that it's going to go down in value and it's just something to transport you from point A to point B.
May I say one thing?
Yeah, I'm all ears.
Okay. Before I got my Mini,
yeah,
I was talking to you about a BMW M240.
Yeah, we test together. Yeah,
convertible.
Yep.
Okay, that was 60 grand, and I put my vanity aside and said, as much as I'd love to have a convertible, and I would, and as much as I'd love to have an M240 convertible, trust me, I would. It didn't. I couldn't justify spending the extra money, and now that I don't drive anywhere anymore,
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time justifying my $380 a month payment on my Mini.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be better off taking an Uber every time I wanted to go somewhere, as long as, well, it was like a hearse type Uber where I could sit all the way in the back and make sure I was at least 6 feet from the driver. Uh, you know, maybe the outside bed of a pickup truck or something. But I mean, you know, truth be told, if you don't really do a lot of driving anymore, Lyft or Uber, why own a car? God, I shouldn't say that. I used to spend 43 years in the car business. That's
I think that could be a whole nother video that we delve into, because I saw some conversation in automotive news about that, because there's actually the expectation that because of health concerns and cleanliness concerns, that ride sharing companies might actually take a bit of a hit. So
and they will.
yeah, I think they will. So we'll have to pick that up in another a future date. But to put a bow on this topic, get a shorter lease. Don't shop for a payment. And if you're in a negative equity position, one tactic you could use is to look for a lease as your next option, and then walk out of that with no equity and no baggage.
And trust me, when you go to the dealership, the first thing the salesperson is going to ask you is what payment are you comfortable with? And your response is, don't worry about the payment. Let's worry about the price and the out the door price of the car. Then we can talk about payment.
That's great, Ray. That's awesome advice.
Yeah. Yeah, because the salespeople are trained to just go, no, really, what payment would be good for you?
Let me guess, you used to do some of that training, didn't you?
I did. One of the things that I used to teach my salespeople to say, if all things being equal, if the payment were the same, would you prefer to lease the car or buy the car? And we were always hopeful they would say, well, lease the car, because, well, lease payments are normally less than a purchase payment. So if you could get them to go, yeah, no, if I do a $500 a month lease, okay. That's how we could have made a lot of money in the old days.
So with you,
Today, I wouldn't do that.
well, yeah. And you're out. You're not in that position anymore. You're an advocate. You're an auto advocate for our customers. So actually, if down in the comments, if you want to learn more about kind of the old tactics that Ray used to use, and I've got a few stories as well from all the GMs and people that I've talked to, leave a comment down below. Let us know. Maybe that could be a future topic of a video. We won't try and get anyone in any trouble, but we'll share some secrets about how the business works and how it works today.
And it works different today than it did way back when, and it'll work better tomorrow when dealers embrace the future.